Hello guys, welcome to another video. Here's a video where I'm just talking to the screen because we're gonna talk about the new syllabus change, only the main changes. We're not gonna go too in depth in this video because there is a lot of changes. This video is just gonna go through the overview of everything, but in the next videos that are coming, I'm going to go through all the actual detailed content changes. So be sure to stay tuned for that. In this video, I'm just going to cover the main changes that has come so far. So let's quickly jump to the content changes, the content overview. As you can see here, for core physical geography over here, not much has changed. As for the main topics, hydrology, atmosphere, rocks and weathering, it's still hydrology, atmosphere, and rocks and weathering. For human geography, there are quite some changes. So they've merged population and migration into just one. And then they've added water resource and management. This is a topic from A2. So it's quite interesting that they just moved it over here. And also for settlement dynamics, they've changed it to an urban focus topic now. So no more rural things. You just need to know about urban areas. For A2 content, for advanced physical, it's still the same thing. It's still tropical, coastal, hazard, and arid environments. Tropical, coastal, hazards, and arid. So not that much change. However, for advanced human geography, there is a lot of changes. So they've completely removed production, location, and change, and also economic transition. Now it's climate change and also disease, which are two very interesting topics, I think. I think they're going to be much more popular in the future when it's more fleshed out. So I think it's a really good change. For environmental issues and global interdependence, it's still roughly the same topic. However, with the difference of climate change and environmental issues, you now have to acknowledge that there is a separation between environment and climate change. So these are more, the environmental issues are more pollution and localized impacts, whereas climate change obviously is a global thing, though they can be interchangeable sometimes. The next thing that we want to be aware of is the assessment objectives. So as you can see here, there's only AO1, AO2, and AO3, which means that they have merged AO1 and AO2 together. But to be honest, it doesn't really matter. It's still going to be the same thing. What matters is, however, is the weighting changes. So previously, it would have been 60, 28, and 12, and then 50, 24, and 26. It's still the same in the A2 where it's 50, 24, and 26. However, in AS now in the new syllabus, 53, 35, 12. You've seen that skills have increased quite a bit, and A1, which is this one, has kind of decreased. But this is not because they're going to weight things differently. It's because the exam papers have changed. For A2, exam papers are still the same. You still do a 10 marker and then you still do a 20 marker. It's completely the same. But for AS, it has changed quite a bit. Let's go over to our different paper. So this is the 2027 specimen paper, and this is a 2024 paper. Previously, in section A, you get the three compulsory topics, and they're 10 marks each. So 1, 3, 6, that's 10 marks. This 10 marks is 10 marks. And then section B, it's one whole question, one whole topic you specialize in, and that's worth 30 marks. So 30-30 splits. In the new paper, you can see section A. Now you're doing it on the paper, you're not doing it on an external paper. But if you look down here, total marks per topic is 15. So in section A over here, hydrology is worth 15, atmosphere is also worth 15, and rocks and weathering is also worth 15. So in section A, the total marks are worth 45, which means in section B, you only have to do one 15 marker. As you can see here, you're no longer specializing. There's no longer like an 8 marker or something you have to do. It's just a 15 marker. This is why your skill AO has increased. And interestingly, I think if you look at the insert papers, so this is 2024 and this is 2027 specimen. If you scroll down, there is one figure for hydrology, there's one figure for atmosphere, and there's one figure for rocks and weathering, and that's the end of it. Sometimes you get two, but usually you just get one. However, in the new syllabus, in the new paper, you get one for hydrology, but two for hydrology. So you get two figures per question essentially. This one is 1, 2, and 3. So 3 figures for atmosphere and uh 2 figures here for rocks and weathering. So I'm assuming that there's going to be at least 2 figure per topic that you're going to get, and that's why your skill AO has increased. So the paper structure change is that section A is worth much more, and section B you just have to do one 15 marker essay. So let me just go back there and repeat that. For AS, there's some changes with the paper in terms of how it's weighed, but in A2, there's no changes at all. So if you're doing A2, you don't have to worry. In AS, be sure that you're adapting your time management and everything based on the new paper. Now, one last thing I want to note before I end this video is this examples and detailed specific examples. Previously in geography, this is how much they talked about examples, and now this is how much they talk about examples. So it's much more detailed, and I think that's much more better. First thing I want to note is that in all papers, candidates are expected to support their answers with examples. This means that every paper you have to use examples. If you don't use examples, you're not going to score high. So every big explanation question or every essay that you do, always use examples. That's my top tip. The next thing is that it mentions in some cases the location may be less important. So I think this is referring to stuff that you don't have to say an example because it may not be as relevant as the content, which is true. So for example, a type of pollution, you don't have to say like located examples of the pollution if you don't know them. So you can just say air pollution, water pollution, land pollution. But to be honest, I kind of disagree with this because if you do use real world examples, I think it's going to be more developed essentially. So it's not a lot that you have to memorize. It's like attaching one topic to a real life example. So for air pollution, just think about the Southeast Asian haze. For water pollution, think about the BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Just name drop these things and it will really like elevate your answers. So it does give a nod to that you don't have to force in a location if you don't have one. But in my opinion, it's really good to just have one in your head. Over here, it's talking about case studies, and it really says that you have to have your case studies be able to answer an extended question. So write an entire essay just based on your case study. Previously, it didn't really highlight the importance of it. It's just saying that you need a case study, but here it's saying that you definitely need a really detailed case study where it asks for you. So in the content that I'll explore in future videos, they will mention case studies where you need very detailed case study to answer an essay on it. New thing that has changed is that previously the earliest date you can pick for a case study is no earlier than 1980, so 1980 to modern day. The new date is now recommended, so you could go earlier than the recommended date, but it's just recommended for 2000 until present day, which is whatever day you're on. Right now it's 2026. So yeah, you have to use much more modern examples. You can use dated examples. But also one more thing to note is that detailed specific examples from within the lifetime of a student are likely to be the most relevant and engaging. So it means that if you're 18 in 2026, for example, use an example from 2008 onwards, because if you use the examples you've lived through and experienced through, then it's going to be more relevant to what you're trying to answer, and it's going to be more true to what you're arguing. If you're arguing on evidence based on something that's very old, then that's not necessarily true right now, and it's not really relevant right now. So whenever you're thinking about case studies or noting down examples for any topics, try to make them more modern and more relevant. The last thing is that previously as where relevant, examples should include material from places at different levels of development. And this wasn't really clear. It was like, should I include HICs, LICs in everything, or should I do it for some things and not other things? And it's really, really confusing. In the new syllabus, it addresses this thing. It says that where the syllabus specifies two examples from contrasting countries, so the syllabus will mention two countries and it will tell you how many case studies you need. Previously, it would just tell you one case study, but then actually you need multiple case studies. Now it will tell you how many case studies you need, and where it says contrasting, you can start with different things. So one way of contrast is HICs, LICs, but there are other ways like contrasting pronatal, antenatal policies, and essentially it's much more clearer and more detailed in what you need to do. So this is all the main changes of the syllabus. There is a lot of content changes that I'll explore, but it's just way too many changes for me to go through in one video. So for this overview video, I hope you guys enjoyed and understand the basics of the new syllabus. Be sure to stay on the watch for new videos, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.